to you from the Hudson Media Group studios. This is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, it was a very interesting week in not just national politics, but state politics. And with the president's visit to South Jersey earlier this week, there was a lot of commotion, not just here in New Jersey, but really throughout the country about what the president's visit means. But even before we get to that, let's get to something that really is working in the president's favor during this election cycle, and that is indeed the economy. Now, a couple stories broke out this week via the Associated Press, USA Today, and also the New York Times, and I sort of want to give you a little bit of a context here so at least you have an understanding of what we're talking about as it pertains to sort of economic growth. Now, again, as reported this week, the president signed the historic United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, replacing the Clinton-era North American Free Trade Agreement that he has called repeatedly a disaster. Now, the USMCA, which is the biggest trade deal thus far in American history, covers more than $1.3 trillion of commerce and is the second major trade deal secured by the president this year. The agreement has already been ratified by Mexico, but not yet by Canada. Now, quote, Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette told Fox Business this week, you're going to see more jobs all across the economy, especially in the automotive section, and also in the agricultural sector, and of course in the energy sector as well. Now, the USMCA requires 75% of automotive components be manufactured in the United States, Canada, or Mexico to avoid tariffs. Now, by 2023, there's an estimate of somewhere between 40 to 45% of automobile parts must be made by workers who earn at least $16 an hour. Now, for those of us, of course, that have been sort of focused on the minimum wage across the country, and we've seen cities and also states sort of implement minimum wage increases, of course, when we hear about this in the production sector, it has to be music to really everybody's ears. Now, let's give you a little bit more information here just to sort of make you understand, hopefully, how effective this is going to be for the economy. Now, the agreement is expected to create 80,000 new jobs that are tied to the auto industry, and of course could bring in up to $30 billion of new investment within the sector itself. Now, the pact will also open new markets for American wheat, poultry, and eggs, among other things. Now, in addition, of course, the president went on to say at the White House when he signed the document, quote, this is a colossal victory for our farmers and ranchers. As he signed the new agreement, everybody said that this was a deal that could not be done. Well, we got it done. Now, the USMCA is a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art agreement that protects, defends, and of course serves the great people of the country, the president wanted to say. And of course, to no one's surprise, the president was very adamant about saying promises made and promises kept. Now, once fully implemented, though, the USMCA is expected to lift gross domestic product by as many as 1.2 percentage points and create up to 589,000 jobs, according to the International Trade Commission, again, a nonpartisan labor statistical group. Now, after the trade deal was approved by the U.S. Senate on January 16th, by a vote of 89 to 10, Senator Charles Grassley, a Republican out of Iowa, went on to say that he hailed it as a, quote, major achievement not only for the president, but a big win for the American people. Now, the signing of the USMCA comes nearly 2 weeks after the president inked a new trade deal with China. Now, combined, the two agreements encompass more than $2 trillion worth of trade and could add as many as 1.7 percentage points to U.S. economic growth. Now, the U.S. economy has indeed expanded at a 2.1% pace in all 3 months, going back as far as September of 2019. The president went on to say again in the White House, quote, we're restoring America's industrial might like never before. He also went on to repeat this during a campaign rally in Wildwood, New Jersey, to not only endorse newly minted Republican House Representative and Jeff Van Drew, but at the same time to sort of tout the economic growth that the president can brag about for the last 3 years. Now, again, he's saying that jobs are coming back, and hopefully this is where the action is going to be concerning the U.S. economy. Now, folks, I've talked about it repeatedly on this program. Now, listen, I'll be the first one to tell you that oftentimes I disagree with the president with his lack of decorum, his lack of civility. I feel he goes overboard on Twitter and social media quite too often. But let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, as we're going into an election year, the economic numbers are there. And this isn't some sort of concocted fantasy here that I'm trying to sort of put forth. I mean, these are actual tangible numbers. Now, of course, I know many of you on the other side, or even detractors of the president, might say, well, the president's just riding the coattails of the Obama economy. Well, again, this is not Econ 101, but let me give you a little bit of a spoiler. Once the president took office in January of 2017, yes, he's still operating under the previous fiscal year's budget under President Obama, which thus that expires once July 1st of 2017 begins. So effectively, folks, since really the fall of 2017 to the president has owned this economy. We've seen massive home ownership among Hispanics. We've seen record unemployment for women and also people of color. That's a big indicator, folks, in an election year. And again, as I mentioned before, we've seen economic growth all across the country. We may not see it here in New Jersey with the ridiculous taxation by Governor Murphy and the democratically controlled legislature, but that's a topic for another day. So, of course, the president took to South Jersey, where his base is very strong, and with well over 10,000 people waiting to get in a facility that only holds about 7,500, the president had really strong support in South Jersey. And, of course, the president maybe even teased a visit during the summer at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Now, as we all know, that both occupants, the New York Jets and the New York Giants, couldn't even fill that building up if you were giving away money. But I'm pretty sure the president could fill up that building in any sort of eventual scheduling. But before we even get to the summer, let's talk about today. And folks, the economy looks strong. And as I've talked about before on this program, with all the gaffes and all sort of oversteps that the president has engaged in the last 3 years, this would have sunk any previous president, whether Republican or Democrat. And somehow the president takes a licking, but he keeps on ticking. Now, we'll see what happens as the Iowa caucuses begin next week. And of course, subsequently the week after that, we'll see the primary in New Hampshire. And of course, the week after that, we'll see the primary in South Carolina. Now, leading up to the rest of February and of course, Super Tuesday in March, a lot remains to be seen about who's the opponent that's going to best challenge the president coming up this November, representing the Democratic Party. But the one thing we all know, folks, is that the president has the economy in his favor. And based on this new trade agreement, folks, it seems like a recession isn't going to happen in 2020. And if that's the case, Democrats could be looking at another L come this November. Again, a lot can happen between now and Election Day, but as we saw, the president is very determined to make the economy his number one priority. Hey, he even said it at a recent rally. You don't have to like me, but I'm getting things done. And you know what? The other side may not be able to say the same things. We'll see what happens in the weeks and months ahead, but as I said before, the economy seems to be that trump card that the president continues to play. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. On the most recent edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to every Wednesday night live at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. And of course, you can do so from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, was the esteemed chairwoman of the Hudson County Democratic Organization, a good friend of mine, and of course, a big friend of the program, Amy Degise. Now, since becoming the chairwoman of the HCDO in June of 2018, Amy's made it a point to appear on the program monthly. And of course, this week was her regularly scheduled monthly appearance. Without a doubt, Amy had a lot to say for well over 75 minutes as she joined me during the podcast. And here are some highlights I think that you'll definitely maybe take into consideration and might actually, raise some interest for you. First and foremost, we talked with the chairwoman of the HCDO, and she mentioned to me really what the process is going to be in terms of endorsing a candidate in Hudson County for the Democratic Party. Now, she's come under a lot of scrutiny via online or even print publications from Democrats all across Hudson County as to what the process should be and whether or not it'll be left up to her and committee people or the actual Democrats will have a say in who they endorse coming up during the primary. Now, unfortunately for New Jersey Democrats, the primary isn't until June, and who knows if by then the primary process could already be settled. We don't know who'll have the most delegates or who's won the most states, but again, that's sort of the disadvantage that New Jersey's at, and of course, New Jersey Democrats understand this, but nevertheless, they still want to have a say in who they select as a candidate, especially right here in Hudson County with so many different political allegiances. Let's hear what she had to say about it.
What's the process, and what are you intending to do along with the HCDO?
Well, there's so much I want to say right now. I think a lot of people that want to criticize the process think that I walk around with like a sword and I knight someone and I say, you are knighted today, and you're anointed. But it's not really like that. And that's something that I had to learn over this past year and a half on what this process is and the transparency behind it and making sure that there's buy-in, making sure that a platform is strong. And it goes back to a lot of the voter data that we've been utilizing. And you want to go to the groups in the communities, whether it's individual people or, groups, like the Bernie voters that have high voter turnout, that have constant communication, not only just as committee people with their elected officials, but with advocacy groups. And it's the communities that are getting a voter turnaround. They're registering people to vote. They're getting people to change their addresses. So those are the communities that you pay attention to and you go to. You say, well, how are you going to get your community out to vote for this election, whichever one it is, a primary, a general, when we had Bob Menendez's race and when we had some local races, you go and you really get a feel of what the platform is in that community and how you transfer that platform from Bayonne to Weehawken to West New York to Kearney, to our religious communities, to our extremely liberal communities, and how you build a platform that's going to get people motivated and engaged to vote and also support the platform that you're putting forth. And you keep those candidates kind of on a similar platform, as much as possible, because you want to give people freedom. People should vote their conscience. People should run on platforms that they believe in. But there are some commonalities that you stand strong with, and you stay united front. This is something that I felt the Democrats had fallen apart at the federal level almost 4 years ago. We started splintering. We started becoming like little tribes. And we weren't able to rally behind one idea, one person, one platform. So locally, you have to keep it together, whether it's with duct tape or crazy glue or scotch tape, whatever you have to do. So a lot of communication goes on with different groups of people on voter turnout. So you go to where the voter turnout is the strongest, and you talk to those communities on what's going to engage them to go out and vote, and what do you then go and tell communities that have a lower voter turnout. How do you convince them? How do you bring them on board? And it is a very delicate process. And I think because a lot of people have not been involved in that process, that they feel that, how could it be this complicated to do? Don't you just sit down with a pen and paper and just, kind of anoint someone? And it's a lot more difficult than that, because you do want to engage the community. You do want to keep platforms updated. With veteran politicians, you want to make sure that they're still sharp. You want to make sure that their ideals are still the right ideals, and that they're not phoning it in, that they're going to evolve, that they're going to be continuously doing better and improving. And that's kind of our system right now. And that goes by, the state regulations, the state bylaws, and also our own bylaws. And I know that some people think that they're a little outdated or antiquated. One way, they've worked, they've been successful for us. They've gotten high voter turnouts. They've gotten community engagement. They've gotten good grassroots fundraising. We're getting our lower dollar amount. Like Bernie always talks about the, a $27 average donation. We're pulling our average donation amount down, which is good, because that means that an average person, not a PAC or a, huge group, is donating thousands of dollars to us. We're getting that average person to sacrifice $25 or $50. And that means a lot to us, because that means that they're engaged and they're paying attention. So again, those are the people who get brought into the table. You don't want to isolate any of these groups, because Democrats, we're just all over the place right now. And we're trying to keep each other under one umbrella, not only for the sake of our local community, but the national politics as well.
Without a doubt, it sounds like a very complicated process for the chairwoman. And of course, coming up next month when she appears in a regularly scheduled appearance, hopefully we'll have an update as to how the HDO will proceed moving further with declaring their support for a specific candidate in the Democratic Party, with its former Vice President Joe Biden, the Senator out of Vermont, Bernie Sanders, perhaps the Senator out of Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren, or maybe even Andrew Yang. We'll find out exactly what happens with the HDO and more specifically, where Democrats will show their allegiance coming up during the June primary. Secondly, we also talked about during the interview her thoughts on Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, as he announced this past week that the new municipal budget will be introduced to the City Council in the next week or so. And of course, during his announcement, the mayor was very specific about talking where he can cut out some excess spending, and also kind of took a shot at the Jersey City Board of Education, as he indicated that they may need to make, quote, tough choices in the upcoming budget season. Well, let's see what the chairwoman had to say about these developments in Hudson County's largest city.
But right now, the floor is yours. When you hear the mayor make that comment about the budget and saying that the Board of Ed should make tough choices, how does that make you feel?
I didn't think that was the right choice of words. And it must be very nice to champion yourself as never raising taxes, because that is such a huge point with people, with voters. And people will vote their wallets most of the time, even if they support you and like you. So and I commend him for being able to, balance a good budget and, to keep the city going. But this is where my left liberalism is going to come out. Taxes are necessary, and taxes are investments in your community. And when you have a community that's filled with unions, police, fire, teachers, your trades, your labor unions, every year life is supposed to get better, not worse. So when you're not investing in those systems, how are you creating a better quality of life for them? And how are you allowing them to stay in this community that's getting very expensive to live in?
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
For over 75 minutes, the chairwoman had a lot to say about not just only Jersey City, Hudson County, the state of New Jersey, and also the national political scene. You can listen to the episode in its entirety once again by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkinthehudson. You can listen to it and download it, where you can check it out anywhere, anytime from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And once again, you can listen to it live every Wednesday night on Blog Talk Radio at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now to some local stories that hopefully will capture your attention. And let's move to the Mile Square city of Hoboken, where this past week, Mayor Ravi Bala delivered his State of the City address at the Mile Square Theater. Now, it was a capacity crowd in attendance, and of course, the mayor is still facing some scrutiny as to whether or not he will be able to sort of keep some sort of control of the city council, which he does not currently have, but more so what lies ahead for him as he's looking to seek re-election in 2021. Now, again, as reported by fellow journalist John Hines via the Hudson County View, so shout out to him and the good work that they do there, the mayor again delivered quite a very sterling speech to Hoboken residents. And of course, he talked about several accomplishments during his tenure thus far in office, which include the creation of new parks, infrastructure upgrades, a climate action plan, and of course, the Vision Zero implementation, among other initiatives that the mayor feels is very important to the city of Hoboken. Let me just give you some details here just to sort of really unpackage this. Now, of course, one of the things that the mayor was very proud of, and he certainly, boasted about during the State of the City speech was, of course, the city's largest quality of life projects, the ongoing construction of the Northwest Resiliency Park, and of course, which includes an ice skating rink, a playground equipment for children, a large athletic field for soccer, for baseball, and also for lacrosse, as well as a great lawn and an eventual amphitheater. Now, these are all great projects, folks, within the Mile Square City. And of course, we have to applaud the mayor for taking the initiative on this. And of course, I'm sure that the city council, who has, some detractors on it of the mayor, will certainly hopefully work together with him to accomplish some of these endeavors. And of course, the mayor went on to say, I thank the council and Director Chris Brown for prioritizing smart development with responsible residential growth and an emphasis on commercial development, as he said once again at the Mile Square Theater earlier this week. Now, folks, this is one of the things, and I've had Mayor Bala on my podcast previously, and he's always been a gentleman with me. But one of the things I've always noticed about the mayor is that I think even he too understands sort of the apprehension that many Hoboken residents have about his leadership and, quite frankly, the friction that exists with the city council. Whether it's with Councilman Mike DeFusco, Councilman Mike Russo, or many others on the council, he understands that, listen, working together is going to prove to be extremely invaluable for Hoboken residents. And of course, listen, there was a mixed reaction with some of the comments and statements that he made during his State of the City speech. But without a doubt, I think the mayor's trying to sort of go into the election season in 2021 on a very strong note. Whether or not these projects ultimately get completed and whether or not Hoboken residents get behind the mayor, again, remains to be seen. As I said before, the Mile Square Theater certainly was filled to capacity, and while the mayor had a lot of his supporters, he also had a lot of his detractors. But regardless, I think it was a way to bring Hoboken residents together and get them to at least realize what achievements and what accomplishments the Mile Square City has certainly faced, and hopefully overcoming any challenges in the coming years ahead. Moving to Jersey City now, and this past weekend at the factory located on Communipaw Avenue on the south side of Jersey City, the Jersey City for Bernie organization had a big rally, and despite the rainy Saturday morning, there was quite a turnout at the factory. Now, folks, as I alluded to during the podcast interview with Hudson County Democratic Organization Chairwoman Amy Degise, certainly Bernie Sanders followers are to be really taken seriously, as we know that a lot of his admirers and a lot of his fans are congregated within Hudson County's largest city. And to no one's surprise, they want to have a say in what happens during this primary process. As we all know, information has leaked out in recent years about how unfair the DNC was to Bernie Sanders in 2016. Whether it was former DNC chair Donna Brazile leaking questions to the Hillary Clinton camp during debates, whether it was maybe congresswomen such as Debbie Wasserman Schultz out of Florida looking to purposely rig the primary for Hillary instead of for Bernie, we all know how the process was unfair to the senator from Vermont. And I think many Bernie supporters are concerned that history could indeed repeat itself in 2020. When they're not taking any chances and they're being very vocal, whether it be here in Hudson County, whether it be in New Jersey, or even across the country. As I stated earlier, with the Iowa caucuses coming and other primaries throughout the month of February, I think Bernie supporters want to make sure that they're heard from and that they're very visible during the primary process. And look no further than here in Hudson County, folks. Now, again, just to give you some details here, once again, a shout out to John Hyannis at the Hudson County View for his excellent reporting on this story. But as I said before, the upcoming Democratic primary hearing in New Jersey isn't until June 2nd, and that leaves many months for Democrats in the Garden State to make a decision as to who they're going to support to ultimately challenge the president later this November. Now, the Bernie for JC campaign vice chair Barry Brendel spoke to a capacity crowd at the factory, again, on Communipaw Avenue. And while he mentioned that, you know what, Bernie supporters should remain strong and dedicated leading up to Super Tuesday, which is on March the 28th, there will very likely be a push for a second ballot. And without a doubt, this is really the necessity of it in terms of securing the necessary delegates for the Democratic nomination. Now, of course, the vice chair was very confident that Bernie supporters in Hudson County will make enough noise to convince the HCDO to hopefully back Bernie in the upcoming primary. A lot remains to be seen, folks, but as I said before, this primary process could prove to be very complicated and very difficult here, not only for the chairwoman within the HCDO, but also for committee people as well in Hudson County. But make no mistake about it, whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it's admirers for Elizabeth Warren, or even admirers for, you know what, someone like Andrew Yang or the Minnesota U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, there'll be a lot of variety and options to choose from, and Hudson County Democrats will undoubtedly have a lot to think about in the coming weeks and months ahead. Now, staying in Jersey City, as I announced earlier during my interview with HCDO Chairwoman Amy Degise, Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop recently announced that a new municipal budget will be unveiled to the City Council. And with it, he talked about, specifically the Jersey City Board of Education having to, quote, make some very tough choices. Now, just to give a shout out here to Joshua Rosario from the Jersey Journal and his excellent work this week on covering the story, the mayor did include the fact that there will not be a tax hike for Jersey City residents, but as I mentioned before, he was urging the Board of Ed to make some tough choices as the district does indeed look at some massive shortfalls in its own budget. Now, the mayor did go on to say that the City Council will review the first draft of the 2020-2021 municipal budget by the end of next week. And hopefully he expects it to be on the council's agenda as early as next month after it's being reviewed by city auditors. Now, again, just to give you some more details here, really about where this is going. Again, the mayor understood and he said, quote, "We do recognize that the Board of Ed will have a school tax increase, and we are ready to work closely with them on the front as they present their own budget." He also went on to say the proposed municipal budget has no tax increases, but it is a stripped-down budget to only invest in essential services. Now, it's unclear how much money the budget aims to save the city and whether there will indeed be any personnel cuts. Now, the city spokeswoman did not respond to any questions about Fulop's announcement. Now, again, the municipal tax is one of three components of a homeowner's property tax bill, and the other, of course, are school taxes and also county taxes. Now, without a doubt, folks, listen, we all know that the upcoming declaration by the mayor and, of course, the support of the city council for a referendum on this November's ballot to decide ultimately whether or not Jersey City taxpayers will be able to vote for Board of Ed candidates still as they continue to be doing, or whether or not they'll be appointed by the mayor and city council still remains to be seen. As I said before, the mayor garnered a lot of goodwill at the end of 2019 with his exceptional leadership after the anti-Semitic attacks that happened on the south side of Jersey City. But without a doubt, he lost some serious political capital in terms of supporting an appointed school board as opposed to a voted school board, which is what Jersey City currently has. Now, we'll find out exactly what the city council votes on in terms of a new municipal budget, and we'll see what sort of outcry there is from the Jersey City Board of Education and also from the teachers union, who I'm sure will have a lot to say about the mayor in the upcoming budget. Lastly, let's go back to the Mouse Square city of Hoboken. It was reported this week by Terry West at the Jersey Journal, nice job over there by the good people at the Jersey Journal, that perhaps another light rail stop may indeed be coming to Hoboken. Now, the mayor has met with New Jersey Transit to meet and hopefully discuss the possibility of this becoming a reality. Now, developing neighborhoods are often built around existing mass transit, and the mayor was very adamant, specifically during his State of the City address, as to whether or not another light rail stop is essential for growth in Hoboken. Now, folks, as a lifelong Hudson County resident and as somebody who takes the light rail quite often to go to Newport Center Mall, or to perhaps even, just go throughout parts of Hudson County, the light rail has become an invaluable service for Hudson County residents. Now, again, whether or not a possible stop on the 15th Street exit of Hoboken, really on the north side, will prove to be valuable for residents as we see development growing and we see more and more small businesses developing in that area. Now, again, folks, it might be a very expensive endeavor. And listen, as far as I'm concerned, it's something that I think is long overdue. And furthermore, if we're ever really going to make it the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail, I think we should really sort of explore the options of stretching it eventually into Bergen County. Now, talks have been really held between Bergen County municipalities, the Board of Freeholders in Bergen County, and also Hudson County freeholders as to whether or not the Bergen County exits will eventually see a reality. Whether it's going all the way up to Inglewood Hospital and stops in between, I would argue that we should definitely use some stops along River Road, going into North Bergen, and even parts of Edgewater going into Fort Lee. Folks, these are highly developed areas. There's a lot of commerce and new businesses developing there, and I think it'd be great if those areas are explored as well. Listen, I think mass transit's important and definitely takes the congestion out of the roads, and it makes our commute somewhat easier. So I'm hoping that this stop at the 15th Street exit in Hoboken is considered, and I'm hoping that other stops along Hudson County and even Bergen County are considered as well. And you know what? Hopefully they break some ground as soon as possible, because we desperately need it. As we continue to be the most densely populated county, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the country, more and more mass transit is necessary. And you know what? Why not start in Hoboken and work your way up north into parts of Hudson and eventually into parts of Bergen County? And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming offered by the Hudson Media Group, go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and also www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook, and don't forget to follow them on Instagram and Twitter. In addition, the Hudson Media Group is proud to partner with NJ On Air, and you should also check out their exceptional programming as well on their website, www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and also follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Folks, it's wonderful programming on both platforms, and as I said before, you won't be disappointed with the diversity and really the wealth of information that we bring you all here on a weekly basis. In addition, you can check out the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. We have great guests coming up throughout the months of February and March. You definitely want to stay tuned. Don't forget to follow the show on Instagram and also check the show out on Facebook as well. Don't forget to hit me up on Twitter, folks, at Professor F. Uribe, and also hit me up on Instagram as well at Professor Fernando Uribe. I'll continue to bring you all the information, and you know what? I'll be as honest and as objective as I possibly can be every single week here. And never forget, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it is always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.